you are doing the clustering is different. And then you also have one more clustering where all the face cards are one cluster, non-face cards another cluster. So when I say that you would like to find the groupings in the data set, and then I am also telling you an example where the groupings are not unique. The groupings are not unique. So when you are doing the clustering, somehow you need to see to it that whatever clusters that you get, somehow they correspond to whatever objectives you have on your mind about this. Then the next question is that why do we do clustering of documents, or why do we do clustering in any field, and why do we do clustering of documents here? In any field we do the clustering. One of the reasons is that yes, we try to find the inherent groupings, okay, and that is true, and we know that the inherent groupings may not be unique, but at least if we get one such grouping, okay, then we try to analyze it, and somehow if the results are not proper, then probably we may go in for some other one. Note that clustering is not the end of your data analysis. It is almost always the very first step, not the last step. Are you understanding me? Clustering is not the last step in your analysis. It is almost always the very first step. Then you do some more further analysis to find out whether these clusters are fine or not with respect to the problem that you are working upon. And you may need to modify this method, or you may need to go in for a completely new method which may give you a completely different set of questions. So there is some other objective also that's on your mind which you are not able to put into your method. So this is one thing that I wanted to tell you. There is another thing that I want to tell you. Whatever algorithm that you use for clustering, each algorithm has some properties, whatever may be the method. And you have a data set. The data set has some properties. You have a data set. The data set has some properties. And you have an algorithm, it has some properties. When you are applying this algorithm on the data set, there is the general, what shall I say, assumption that you are making that somehow the properties of the algorithm are very close to or similar to the properties of the data set. This is the basic assumption that you are making. That may not be true. That may not be true. This is one thing that all of you should understand and realize. That whenever you are applying any algorithm on any data set, in fact this is the general statement that I am making. This is the general statement that I am making. Whatever algorithm that you apply it on whatever data set, then there is an assumption that you are making that somehow the properties of the algorithm, they are tallying with the properties of the data. And you say that, well, sir, the results are not good. That means what? Your algorithm, the properties that you are assuming for the algorithm, maybe some of them may not be there for the data. Some of the interrelationship that you are assuming, they are not there for the data. That's why you are getting bad results. Are you understanding me?
Yes.
So, this is one thing that you have to be always conscious about. And this problem is, I mean, in some senses this is referred to as cluster validity. That is, whatever clusters that you get, how good they are. Again, how good they are, it is dependent upon what further steps that you are going to do. That is one. And then there are many other issues also. Anyway, so this is one thing that I wanted to tell you, that is the properties of the data and the properties of your algorithm, they should tally. Otherwise, you are not expected to get good results. And then here it is written, documents within a cluster should be similar, documents from different clusters should be dissimilar. So you see the word similar. So there should be a measure of similarity. This is one thing that people generally follow. People have some measure of similarity, and within a cluster, somehow they are more similar than you take two documents from two different clusters, their similarity should be less. This is one thing that people, you will find it in very many algorithms. But then, I don't know whether you have got this doubt or not. This must be very easy to implement, right? In the sense that if you give a good meaning of the word similar, then if you assume that your machine can do all possible computations, then you can do something like an overall exhaustive search. Let us assume that you can do it. Then you may be able to find this. But then, that means, theoretically speaking, there should not be any problem with this. But then actually, in practice, we have very many problems. What are the basic issues here? The basic issues are, number one, how you measure your similarity. The similarity between two documents are, in this case, two documents. In the general clustering, there are two observations. How do you measure similarity between them? Okay. These are debatable issues. In the usual literature, people take something like Euclidean distance. If the distance is more, similarity is less. If the distance is less, then the similarity is more. That is the usual literature of data mining or other subjects. But then here, the data representation itself, you might have a 50,000 dimensional data. I mean, each page or each document, you might have 50,000 dimensional data. I mean, it may correspond to 50,000 dimensional vector. So if you have 10,000 documents, and when you want to measure distances between them by using Euclidean distance, and then if you want to apply some of the usual methods, probably one of the problems that you are going to face is computational complexity. One of the problems that you are going to face is computational complexity. And there is also another thing. In this 50,000 dimensional data, most of the elements will be zeros, vectors. Because in a document, how many different words you have? Let us just say 300, 500 different words you have. 1,000 different words you have. But then it is 50,000 dimensional vector. So you have 1,000 non-zero elements. The rest 49,000 elements are zeros. Right? So you have a sparse data. You have a sparse data. So most of your calculations should somehow take into consideration this thing, sparse data. Right? Okay. This is one of the commonest form of unsupervised learning. Unsupervised learning from raw data as opposed to supervised data where a classification of examples is given. So I hope all of you know the meaning of supervised and unsupervised. So I won't go into it. So this has been in use in very many subjects. It has been in use in very many subjects. So this is a toy example. So there are here three clusters. A good clustering will produce high quality clusters in which the intra-cluster similarity is high, intra-cluster similarity is low. The quality depends on the data representation and the similarity measure used. The quality depends upon the similarity measure used, which is fine, but it also depends upon how do you define the quality of the cluster. It also depends upon how you define the quality of cluster. That definition should be acceptable to all the persons. Once that is acceptable, then how you measure that quality, there the similarity and all the other things will come into the picture. But the basic thing is that how you define the quality of the cluster. That there is, again, there are some things which are generally acceptable, but they are not acceptable. I mean, there is a lack of literature on how to measure this quality of clustering in all the situations. Suppose you already know that your data set has, say, 10 classes, 10 categories, but then you don't know which document goes into what category. Okay, so you know that you have 10 clusters, so you divide the data set into 10 clusters. Okay, but suppose then the problem is that for each one of them, suppose you also know the class information, then you would like to check how much your clustering corresponds to the class information. So there you are using class information as your measure of quality of your clustering. There you are measuring the class information as the measure of quality of your clustering. This you can do in those places where you know the class information. If you don't know the class information, then people have used some other measures. They are found to be good in some situations, but only at that place only I learn. You don't have universally acceptable ways of measuring the quality of clustering in all the situations. Okay. Clustering in the context of text documents. Organizing documents into groups so that different groups correspond to different categories. That is when you know the class information. Hello, I am in a lecture, please. Okay. So, clustering in the organizing documents so that different groups correspond to different categories. This, in many situations, you have this information, but not in all the situations. There is information regarding categories. That is the same as information regarding the class. Text clustering is better known as document clustering. That is another word. And there is a small example. So these are some of the things that you are going to face, which you may not face in the usual data mining literature, but you will face it in the problem of text mining. Look at the word apple. Apple can be a fruit, and Apple can be a multinational company, and Apple also can be it's a newspaper in Hong Kong. So you have these sort of things. That means the same word can be put in any one of the three categories. The same word can be put in any one of the three categories. You don't need to take all these slides. I mean, I suppose the organizer is they are going to distribute these slides. So don't bother about it. You will get the slides, right? You will get the slides. So you don't need to write all this. When do I need to stop? Okay. So how do you do it? Your all measures of similarity to plus. So you need to have some similarity measures, and then one of the ways that you do get similarity measures is cosine of angle between document vectors. You have the TF IDF scheme for representing a document. You have a question? Hello? No. Do you all know the TF IDF scheme of representing a document? I don't think I need to go into that. It's the third day of the workshop, so you must all be knowing it, so I won't go into detail. So, TF-IDF scheme, and then you measure the cosine of angle between document vectors. This is one of the acceptable things. I hope you know the definition. Nevertheless, I will give you the definition of meaning of cosine of angle between two document vectors. And then these are some of the issues. Large number of dimensions, it is same as term. Data matrix is sparse. I have already mentioned it. Noisy data. Pre-processing is needed. Stop word removal. Okay. Stemming and feature selection. I won't go into the feature selection part, and I also won't go into stop word removal. I assume that you already know it. Can I assume that you know what the stop word removal is?
Yes.
Okay. Stemming?
Yes.
So I assume that all these things are already done. So what's the document vector? Well, as I said, you have a bag of words. As many words or as many terms are there, that is so many features are there. Each document is represented as a vector. Okay. Data matrices, most of the times do not exist in every document. Okay. This you already know it. So document representation, TF term frequency, DF document frequency. I think all of you know this thing. So I won't go into it. So weight of a vector, it is term frequency, and log of and inverse document frequency is log. Yes?
If a length of each document is very large, let's say like news article, then we can use term frequency because one word might be repeated many times. But if it's a very small 2-3 line text, suppose let's say customer feedback or something like where the length is just two to three sentences, so the words may not be repeated that many times to understand the importance. So is there any other way to understand the similarity between
See, what you can always do is that this TF-IDF scheme, that is, people started using it because your number of documents is more as well as the number of words is also more. But suppose the number of words is less, then what you can do is that don't go in for the idea of pattern. Each term, how many times it has come in, that you can just do. That is one way. Each term, how many times it has occurred in the web page. It has occurred in a document.
But in that situation, the language specific words may occur many times.
See, for these sort of questions, as I said, there are no universally accepted satisfactory answers. These are, I should say, I mean, at least I don't want to say that whatever I suggested, that is the only way of doing it. There can be many other ways of doing it. That is number one. And if your question is what is the best way, then I don't know. Then I don't know. Because, I mean, these are the issues. In fact, the whole of clustering, that's what I'm going to say in the end, that you really don't have good theory for many of these methods. I should say, in many ways, the literature is at an infant stage. We really don't have nice theory for many of the things that one is doing. So that is the best that I can do. So this is one thing that people generally do. I don't need to give this example, I think all of you know it. So I think what I do is that, shall I stop here? 10 more minutes? Right. Then this is document similarity. This is the way you define cosine between two documents. Suppose your document 1 has the terms T11, T12, I mean T11, the number of terms is smaller, okay, and according to your TF-IDF scheme, For the first term, the value corresponding to the first term is T11, the value corresponding to the second term is T12, this is T1n for the document 1. For the document 2, it is T21, T22, T2n. And the cosine is defined as this: I is equal to 1 to n, T1i into T2i divided by T1i square into T2i square. This is the usual definition of when you have two vectors, two n-dimensional vectors, how to measure the angle between them. The usual definition. And here all the values are lying between each T1i. They are all, they cannot be less than 0. Okay. They cannot be less than 0. So your cosine value, it will lie between 0 and 1. They won't take any values between -1. They won't take any negative values. So cosine of the angle here varies from 0 to 1. Here it varies from 0 to 1. So as in the usual data mining literature, where you have many methods of clustering, correspondingly, some of those methods, they are transferred to this. So these are some of the methods of document clustering. Single linkage, complete linkage, there is something called group average. And you have the corresponding chaining sort of algorithm here. There is something called bisecting chaining, there is something called buckshot. So I am going to discuss these methods, but then as I said, these are some document clustering methods, not all document clustering methods. There are some methods, in fact, I had left them out. Okay, I didn't know that I would get time or not. That's why some of the methods I had left them out. These are some of the mainly used clustering techniques in document processing. So let us see. I think I will stop here. I will start after lunch. I will start with single linkage. So if you have any questions, you can ask.
Questions? I think no. So we conclude this session here and we will start at 2:30.
Some of the document clustering techniques. So let us discuss these techniques one by one. Okay? Let us see what the first one is here. Chaining. Okay? Now, how many of you don't know K-means? Raise your hands. 1, 2, only 2, 3, 4, 5. So 90% of the audience, they know K-means. Anyway, so I can just describe the method sort of briefly. So you have some data set. You have some data set, multidimensional data. Here it is written in terms of D1 to Dn. Let me write in terms of D1 to Dn. So these are your documents, n documents. The number of clusters k that is given to you, that means you are told that you are to put these documents into k clusters. So what you do is that you start with k randomly generated points, say from these n points. You choose k points randomly. Okay? You choose k points randomly, and let us call the k points as, say, D11, D12, D1k. These k points, they are chosen from these n points randomly. Then what you do? You start with D1. You find the similarity of D1 with D11, D1 with D12, D1 with D1k. Whichever similarity is maximum, put that point into that cluster. Put the point into that cluster. That is with respect to 1, 1. If the similarity is maximum, put the D1 into first cluster. If 1, 2 the similarity is maximum, put it into second cluster. 1k the similarity is maximum, put it into kth cluster. Similarly you do it for D2, similarly you do it for D3, similarly you do it for Dn. So you are going to get now k clusters. Let us call the clusters as C11, C12, C1k. You are calling the clusters as C11, C12, C1k. Now get the mean of C11, mean of C12, mean of C1k. Let us call them D21, D22, D2k. Actually, okay, you call them D21, D22, D2k. And again with respect to D21, D22, D2k, divide this D1 to Dn, this set of documents, you put them into one of the clusters using this D21, D22, D2k. Okay? Then you will get C21, C22, C2k. So if your C11 is same as C21, C12 is same as C22, C1k is same as C2k, then you stop. Otherwise, what you are going to do? You rename C2is as C1is, rename C2is as C1is, and get the means of these C2is, and again you do the clustering. So you go on doing it till you get convergence. So this is the basic scheme of k-means. I hope you have understood the scheme. Now there are many issues in k-means. Let me start telling the issues one by one. First issue is, when is it going to converge? See, usually we decide the number of observations, number of iterations in advance, or you give some criterion that if the difference between C11 and C21, C12 and C22, C1k and C2k, if these differences are small, then you stop it, or you give the number of iterations in advance. So people do one of these things. If your data set is small, then you don't need to do it, because you can do the number of iterations as many as possible. But when your data set is large, you don't have the freedom of making the number of iterations very, very large, because then the number of computations will be more and more for your machine to handle. So usually the number of iterations in some way or other, it is decided by the user. Okay, that is the first remark. Okay, and you have many more remarks. I said you use similarity, and the similarity that we are going to use is cosine similarity. Okay, whereas if you look at the usual pattern recognition literature or data mining literature, the similarity measure or the dissimilarity measure that people use is some sort of a distance, like Euclidean distance or some other such distance. There is a very basic issue here which I would like to state. I don't know how many people are going to appreciate it. Nevertheless, I will try to state it. There is a connection between what similarity measure you are going to use and the way you are changing the representative point. Here the representative point of a cluster is taken to be its mean. We all understand the definition of mean. Representative point of a cluster is taken to be the mean of the cluster of points. Note that in the usual data mining literature, when people are using Euclidean distance to measure the dissimilarity, then also people are taking mean. Here we are using cosine similarity. Here also people are taking the mean. If your similarity measures are different, is it necessarily true that you will change the representative point? I mean, your way of your representative point definition, should it need to be changed or should it need to be kept the same? Have you understood the question? I will repeat it. If your similarity measures are different, is it necessarily true that your representative point definition should remain the same? Don't you need to change it? Have you understood the problem? How many of you think that it should be changed? You think it should be changed? 2, 3, 4. But many persons probably you have not appreciated that question. Okay? Let me try to explain that question to you. Here I am going to the research part of it.